What's up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne. Thanks for joining us. President Ching-te has laid out a major new plan to safeguard Taiwan, citing China's increasing military threats and efforts to intimidate the country. Alan Liu reports.
Taiwan is raising the stakes on its defense and working to counter China's push to take the country. That's the message from President Ching-te, who announced a new defense plan following a top-level national security meeting on Wednesday. Lai says Beijing aims to take Taiwan by force by 2027 and has been stepping up preparations to accomplish that goal, including increased military exercises and gray zone harassment around Taiwan. And he says that's why Taiwan is setting its own timeline. Over the next 8 years, Lai says Taiwan will build a strong and capable defense force.
第一个目标是2027年之前达成国军联战部队的高备战能力，有效嚇阻中国威胁。第二个目标是2033年进一步建成高度强韧、全面嚇阻的防卫战力。
Lai's announcement comes amid heightened Chinese military activity in the region. Between Tuesday and Wednesday morning, Beijing sent 20 jets near Taiwan. It is also conducting military drills in the Yellow and Bohai Seas as tensions with Japan soar. Joined by President Lai on Wednesday was Defense Minister Wellington Koo, who confirmed the details of a planned special budget worth around $40 billion, an unprecedented amount. Koo says the budget, which would run from 2026 to 2033, will be used to develop and purchase the weapons it needs to fend off a Chinese attack. That includes the T-Dome, a new multi-layer air defense system, as well as drones. And he says Taiwan will expand cooperation with the U.S. on defense production.
编列的目的在于争取预算一次性的配布，确保资源稳定集中，加速筹获所需的战力。
The Lai administration's plans have already received praise from U.S. policymakers and representatives. Raymond Green, director of the American Institute in Taiwan, the U.S.'s de facto embassy here, welcomed the announced budgets in a Facebook post. And on X, the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee said the plan demonstrates Taiwan's willingness to enhance its defense capabilities. But the budget, set to be passed by the cabinet soon, will need the approval of Taiwan's opposition control legislature. Experts say the opposition parties are likely to have some disagreements, but passing the budget shouldn't be difficult as long as there's effective communication.
基本上不是一次就拨那么多钱，它是逐年的，就是等于说你要把你的规划拨款期程大概都告诉他我要做什么，然后这些东西投入到哪些去，可能大概就可以去做解决。
China's intimidation of Taiwan goes beyond military activity, though. Officials say Beijing also engages in disinformation campaigns, legal and psychological warfare, and cross-border suppression. Taiwanese authorities say they will improve communication with the public, introduce legislation to counter China's legal warfare, and strengthen international cooperation to better respond to the escalating threats. As China ramps up pressure across the Indo-Pacific, Taiwan is hoping its new plan and proposed budget could signal its determination to defend itself against any moves by China. Fu Huahong and Alan Liu in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
A delegation of lawmakers from Panama has arrived in Taiwan despite reported efforts by China to get a trip canceled. Cadence Coranta reports.
In a show of unofficial diplomacy, several politicians from the Central American country of Panama are in Taiwan. They're set to meet with several Taiwanese officials, including its vice president, and to visit some of the country's high-tech hubs. The foreign ministry says the goal of the trip is to deepen understanding of Taiwan's economic development and industries with the hope of increasing cooperation. It expressed hope the trip would be the beginning of more interactions between the government and people of both countries. What makes this visit so significant is that it's the first time Panamanian lawmakers have visited Taiwan since the country cut formal ties with Taipei in favor of Beijing in 2017. It's also caused a diplomatic spat with China, which allegedly pressured the lawmakers to cancel their visit. Beijing opposes its allies having any official interactions with Taiwan, which it claims as its territory. It's also stirred controversy within Panama, with President Jose Raul Molino saying he didn't approve of the trip. But Panama's foreign ministry appeared to hit back, saying it would not accept any pressure aimed at influencing its authorities' decisions, and the lawmakers went ahead with the trip. One expert says the incident could indicate growing legislative support for Taiwan in Panama.
This trip signals a quiet revival of Taiwan-Panama informal ties and also demonstrates Panama's pragmatism in its foreign affairs direction by looking at different markets for cooperation opportunities, even those that it does not possess formal ties, and an attempt to address the over-economic reliance on China. This recent move by Panamanian legislators isn't isolated. It's one of the latest in a series of low-key exchanges like virtual talks and trade forums, suggesting a legislative pushback against the 2017 decision to end ties with Taipei.
And this is not the only group of foreign lawmakers from countries without formal relations with Taiwan that are visiting right now. A cross-party delegation from Denmark is also in Taiwan, as well as legislators from Colombia who just met with Taiwan's foreign minister. This also comes as several top Taiwanese officials have made visits to non-diplomatic allies in Europe recently, many of which have faced backlash from China. It appears to be part of a possible trend of countries willing to withstand Chinese pressure to interact with Taiwan on their own terms. Hank Xu and Cadence Caranta for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he had a great talk with Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae and downplayed recent China-Japan tensions.
I had a great talk. I have a very good relationship with her. I also had a very good talk with President Xi of China, and I think that part of the world is doing fine.
Trump spoke with Takaichi by phone after holding another call with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It comes amid a mounting Chinese pressure campaign against Japan over Takaichi's comments on the Taiwan contingency. When asked about his conversation with Xi, Trump said it focused on trade and selling more farm products. But China's readout quoted Xi as calling Taiwan's return to China integral to the world order, and Trump as saying the U.S. understands China's position. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has told CNBC's Squawk Box that the U.S. position on Taiwan is unchanged. Bessent's comment came after Trump's phone calls with Japan's Takaichi and China's Xi. The U.S. does not take a formal position on Taiwan's sovereignty. In his interview, Bessent said he felt good about the U.S.-China relationship and the possibility of future cooperation. It's been nearly 5 decades since the U.S. broke off formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan. Today, though, unofficial ties between the two countries are strong. That's thanks in large part to the Taiwan Relations Act, the legislation passed by the U.S. Congress in 1979 that governs those relations. Many of the items that guaranteed in the law were based on recommendations made by a group of Americans living and working in Taiwan, headed by then President of the American Chamber of Commerce in Taiwan, Robert Parker. Our reporter Jeremy Olivier recently spoke to Parker about his experience and his new book, De-Recognition, for our news program, Zoom In, Zoom Out.
You went to Washington to testify in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Can you talk a little bit about what your demands were?
Yes, we had to first deal with the omnibus bill and attack it, show why it was deficient, and then take the positive side and make the proposals for what we felt was needed in the legislation.
So how receptive was the Foreign Relations Committee to the demands that you brought them?
They were very receptive. They needed to know what they wanted to respond strongly, but how to respond and what the terms should be. So when the testimony was given, it turned out that the other witnesses largely concentrated on geopolitical factors, philosophical approaches, historical analogies and the like. And it was us, the American Chamber of Commerce in Taiwan, that focused on the practical and legal issues that would apply. The existence of diplomatic relations with a friendly country under U.S. law carried with it many legal consequences under American law. And it was unprecedented for the United States to break diplomatic relations with a friendly country. In the past, we'd only done that with enemy countries. And suddenly to have all of those things that flowed automatically under U.S. law from the existence of formal diplomatic relations with a friendly country had been swept away. And so in my research for my testimony, I focused on those legal consequences of the existence of official diplomatic relations and the essence of recognizing sovereignty under U.S. law, and wove that into the recommendations that I made, to which the Senate Foreign Relations Committee was very receptive.
And how many of those asks ended up in the final piece of legislation?
Well, it wasn't 100%, but it was close. I'd say 80%.
And among that 80%, what do you think was the most important?
If I had to single out one, it would be that the omnibus bill proposed by the administration did not deal with the fact that Taiwan had a government. They simply referred to the people on Taiwan.
Yeah, very interesting legalese.
Yeah. And so insisting that there had to be a definition in the Taiwan Relations Act that linked that to the government on Taiwan, I think was the most important. And Congress agreed. So that was done. But there were also a wide number of very important issues that had simply been left out of the administration's proposal. For example, what about all of the existing treaties and agreements between the United States and the ROC? Well, Jimmy Carter had said they'll continue in effect, but their proposed legislation didn't say that. So I insisted that that had to be addressed, and Congress agreed and wrote that into the Taiwan Relations Act.
That was former AmCham Taiwan President Robert Parker. A former top TSMC executive is in the spotlight here in Taiwan. The chip giant is suing him after he left the firm and went to work for their rival. Leslie Liao has more.
TSMC is taking one of its former executives to court. Luo Weiren worked for the Taiwanese chip giant for over 2 decades, retiring as a senior vice president in July, shortly after he joined American chipmaker Intel. In a statement, TSMC alleges there is a, quote, high probability that Luo shared trade secrets with his new employer, violating confidentiality agreements and Taiwan's Trade Secrets Act. TSMC's lawsuit comes after prosecutors in Taiwan launched a probe against Luo for allegedly stealing restricted information on advanced semiconductor manufacturing. According to TSMC, Luo arranged meetings with the R&D department for briefings on the company's advanced technologies, even though that was outside of his purview. While TSMC has decided to litigate, industry leaders seem to think the law can only do so much in this case because it involves cross-border business practices.
职业道德上，我们要小心谨慎不要跨越但是在这一次的个案上面，就考验看看这个台湾在制裁权的跨国处理的司法实务上，看看怎么样
Even so, Luo is already having to deal with consequences. Earlier this year, Taiwan's top research institute, ITRI, awarded him a Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, ITRI is launching its own investigation into Luo, deciding whether to revoke that award. But industry analysts say Taiwan will need to be proactive in making sure it can retain its talent. Luo's case highlights just how competitive the semiconductor industry is getting, and the lengths other countries may go to obtain top-notch talent.
从罗先生他的一个个案当中，也凸显了台湾高阶人才的一个流动所带来系统性的一个风险，也反映了在全球的一个半导体的人才进入了白热化的一个进程阶段，特别是在美国呢，政府积极推动那么在地化的一个供应链。
This is not the first time TSMC has filed a lawsuit against a former employee. In the early 2010s, a former R&D officer went over to Korean rival Samsung, and that case ended with a court ruling in TSMC's favor. But there's no guarantee that Luo's case will play out the same. Joseph Wu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Follow our social media for more of our stories. Before we go, we take you to Greece as it rehearses the lighting of the flame for the 2026 Winter Olympics. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.